the Mint Door Podcast with Dr. Karen Tyndall and Dr. Laura Schwint.
Are you a high achiever feeling the burnout blues? Well, the Mint Door Podcast is your oasis. But before we introduce you to today's phenomenal guest, we're extending an invitation to something extraordinary. We're mixing up the perfect antidote to burnout with our Mint Julep newsletter, a weekly dose of inspiration delivered straight to your inbox.
Now, each edition of the Mint Julep is more than just words on a page. It delivers connection, brimming with inspiration, positivity, and a dash of fun. Think of it as your virtual happy hour with a supportive community of high achievers. We'll help you unwind, recharge, and rediscover the joy in every day.
So subscribe to the Mint Julep and let's clink glasses or coffee mugs to live a more inspired, joyful life, 1 week at a time.
And if you're more of a visual learner, we've also got you covered. All of our podcasts plus bite-sized coaching tips are on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@themintdoor. It's there that you can subscribe for happiness on the go.
That's right. So are you ready to talk about something vital? Something that can literally be the difference between life and death? Well, we're diving deep today into a topic that affects everyone, yet often gets overlooked. And that topic is oral cancer.
Every year, thousands of lives are impacted by this devastating disease. But what if we could change that? What if we could catch it earlier, significantly increasing the chances of survival? That's where our guest today comes in. She's not just a dental hygienist, she's a warrior on the front lines of oral cancer detection. And she's a game changer.
So get ready to meet the oral cancer coach, the CEO of Oral Cancer Consulting, the woman who has personally performed over 60,000 oral cancer screenings. Yes, you heard that right, 60,000. She's the brilliant mind behind the Cotten method of screening, an award-winning speaker, and a force of nature when it comes to raising awareness. She's organized countless free screening events, from the Denver Broncos Health and Wellness Expo to the recent Rocky Mountain Dental Conference. She's the dental lead for the Alliance for HPV-Free Colorado, sits on the advisory boards of RDH Magazine and the Oral Cancer Foundation, and is a 2018 Sunstar RDH Award of Distinction recipient. She's even won Dentistry's Got Talent for speaking in 2023.
Now, we're talking about Susan Cotten, RDH. This isn't just a job for Susan, it's a mission. She's passionate about empowering dental professionals to confidently screen, reduce liability, and most importantly, save lives. From the beaches of Hawaii to the dental chair, Susan brings energy, expertise, and a whole lot of heart to everything that she does. And when she's not fighting the good fight against oral cancer, you might just finding her cheering on her favorite football team or tearing up the dance floor because yes, she's a former country dance competitor.
So buckle up, because this is an episode you don't want to miss. We're going to get real about oral cancer, learn from the best, and discover how we can all make a difference. Welcome to the show, Susan Cotten.
Well, welcome to the podcast, Mint Door listeners. We are excited to bring to you today Susan Cotten. Susan, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence and being here to talk about the magic that you bring into the world.
Oh, Laura and Karen, I'm thrilled to be here with you guys. We had some time together in Denver, and that was so fun. So I'm thrilled to be here, and thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
That's great. Well, in our introduction, we briefly mentioned that you developed the Cotten method of screening. And we would really love if you could share with us what's one thing that you want every dental professional to know about early oral cancer detection.
Oh gosh, do I have to pick one thing?
You may be allowed more than one. You may be allowed more than one.
What do I want them to know? The most important thing for us, I feel like, as clinicians, is to be confident in performing this procedure, because it is a procedure. It's that visual and tactile, extraoral, intraoral evaluation. And we know as dentists and dental hygienists that when we are confident in performing a procedure, whatever it is, periodontal charting, maybe, restorations, but when we have our system down and we're confident, then we can do it efficiently and thoroughly and provide that excellent care to our patients. And that's what brought me to developing the Cotten method. I graduated from University of Colorado Dental School, Department of Dental Hygiene, received an excellent education, and was taught how to do a comprehensive screening. And I did that right out of hygiene school. I wasn't always confident in performing it, but I did it. And then as time went on, there were times when I would let the busyness of my day, a late patient, maybe a production-driven procedure take precedence, or back then I assumed, well, my patient doesn't use tobacco, they report. They're not high risk. I can skip the extra oral and I'll do the intraoral because I'm running behind. And that was me. So I've had a journey through oral cancer, but it was an oral cancer patient, actually HPV oral pharyngeal cancer patient, that really changed me. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I've got to go back to what I was doing right out of hygiene school, that comprehensive head and neck evaluation, every patient, every time, regardless of my perception, whether or not they were at risk, because we know risk now has changed. And so I started doing it again, but I'm like, I'm not really confident. Okay. Am I in the right place for the thyroid? And then when HPV came on the scene, I was like, oh, how do I really evaluate that oropharynx? So, and just through a series of events that I took steps working with mentors and got that confidence. And other hygienists and dentists were reaching out and said, will you come and work with us and show us? We're not really confident. So that's how the Cotten method came to be, was real life experience, working with mentors, my education, what we know now through research and evidence. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, you definitely did. And that leads me to thinking about, if I'm listening to the podcast and I'm thinking, yeah, I do some of these things, but that piece of the confidence piece of it, I think that resonates with me. It's probably how I used to feel when I was practicing and doing this. What are the steps that somebody needs to take to be able to gain that confidence?
Well, I think as we know as clinicians, it's doing it over and over and over. First, knowing what those steps are. And that's what I love talking about in my oral cancer courses I give. But then in the hands-on oral cancer screening workshops that I give, we really get hands-on because we can listen to what all the steps are. We can watch videos, which I show in my course, of what the steps are. But where did we really learn that confidence and skill as hygienists and dentists? It's doing it over and over. So in the workshops, we work hands-on, and I'm there to come up and say, oh, here's, because let's take palpation, sometimes palpation is done like this, but that's not true palpation. Palpation is pads of fingers, moderate circular motion. So when we're palpating here, oh yes, there's our submandibular glands. We can palpate those. We've identified those. So it's knowing those steps and working hands-on, and then just doing it over and over and over.
Becoming
And knowing that there is no perfection, right? Just strive for excellence in it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious if I could go back into your story a little bit, because I think that this is really interesting. But you said that it was for you, what changed was a patient that had oral cancer. Can you just kind of elaborate a little bit on that and how that was sort of your wake up call to really dive into this deeper? And then what who were the resources that you looked to get better yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for asking that. Well, it was 2008 and it was like it was yesterday. We had a new patient to our office and she had previously been diagnosed with HPV, oropharyngeal cancer, and HPV cervical cancer. Well, in 2008, I knew cervical cancer, but I said, what's HPV, oropharyngeal cancer? I had not heard yet that HPV was causing oropharyngeal cancer. And so I started to do some research. And really, at that time, we were just on the cusp of starting to hear a lot about HPV, oropharyngeal cancer. And so I started to do some research, found some things, found the Oral Cancer Foundation. They've got so much good information on their website. But then it was watching her, what she went through, what she felt shame because she had two cancers caused by a sexually transmitted infection. We don't call it a disease because it's those persistent infections from HPV that can go on. But she felt embarrassed, ashamed, and watching what she went through. But then after I'd seen her for a couple of years, she came in one day and, we were talking about upcoming weekend plans. And she was in my operatory in the chair and she started to cry. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And she said, this weekend I'm going to a good friend's wedding. And all I want to be able to do is to go and smile, take pictures, laugh out loud like everybody else does. But Susan, I can't. She would always smile like that with her lips closed. She said, I have this constant fear that somebody will see what my teeth look like. And as dental professionals, we know what cancer can do to the mouth and the effects, the chemo and radiation, and then the lifelong side effects from radiation and the treatment due to the mouth and the teeth. And oh, I tell you, that hit me in the gut. So we cried. We did a little bit of her appointment, but mostly we talked. But I was going to my own big event that weekend, and what was my concern? Well, were my teeth white enough? And I thought, okay, I felt horrible. She wanted to just go and smile. And I was headed to Donny Osmond's fan club get together in Las Vegas with my sister that weekend. And, Donnie and I are about the same age. And, I was in love with him like most everybody when we were teenagers. But so I jetted off to Las Vegas and boy, we had a great time. So fun to meet your teenage idol, right? And have
Can't
this
imagine.
whole weekend doing things with Donnie. One morning, went and worked out with him and his trainer at his school. Just a pool party. He had in the Flamingo showroom at the time where he and Marie had their show, because this was 2010. Had a private concert, all this fun stuff. But at the beginning of his weekend, we were in the showroom and he pulled up a chair and he sat down and he was just quiet for a minute and he looked at all of us. And he said, what do you want to do to make a difference in your community? I want you to think about that. because throughout this weekend, my assistants will be coming around and asking all of you what you want to do. So tell them what you want to do. And towards the end, I'm going to pick 15 of those ideas and I'm going to call you up on stage. You're going to tell all of us what you want to do. And then I'm going to pick 10 of you to be in my inaugural Donny Osmond Make a Difference program. Well, so here we were on the bus going to work out that morning with Donnie, and his assistant came up to me and says, "What do you want to do to make a difference?" 2 days earlier, I'd had the conversation with my patient, and she was heavy on my heart. And so I said, "Well, I want to raise awareness about HPV and oral cancer." And he was just like, "Oh, okay." And he wrote it down. So long story short, did the weekend. Here we were kind of starting to wrap up in the Flamingo showroom. And Donnie said, "Okay, here's the 15. I'm going to call your name, come up on stage." And I was one of the 15. And so here we were up on stage, big camera, lights. Donnie was going one by one. "What do you want to do?" Laura and Karen, I have no idea what I said because, here's Donny Osmond with a clipboard and he's writing things down and here's a camera. Must have been okay because I was one of the 10 selected to be a part of his inaugural Make a Difference program. And so he said, he gave each of us $300 to start our program. He gave us each a camera. And he said, "Go out and make a difference. Take pictures, document what you do." And I'm asking two things of you. Number one, I want you to come back next year and present to all of us what you did to make a difference. So take the pictures. And then he said, "Oh, the second thing, I want your cell phone number because I'm going to call each of you once a month for the next year and check in and see what's going on." And my 13-year-old self went, "Ah," right? And my adult self said, "He's not going to call." Well, he did. Once a month, we all got a call from Donnie. And, "Susan, Donnie Osmond, how are you doing? What's going on in your program?" And he wanted us to name our program, Make a Difference. So mine was Make a Difference for Healthy Smiles. And so I left that weekend, and on the flight home, I thought, what have I gotten into? And what's going to happen? What I did know, if anything happened, our patient needed a new smile. And so that Monday, I went back to my dentist, and I'd been at this office for a long time. And I said, "Here was the conversation before I went. Here's what happened at this event." I said, "Will you work with me so our patient can have a new smile?" "Absolutely. Let's do it." There was no hesitation. And so it was probably about 7 months later when she got her new smile, and we were just all in tears and celebrating. But a lot of other things happened that year. I got involved with the Oral Cancer Foundation and organized the first Colorado Oral Cancer Awareness Walk Run, and had other patients that needed help because they were periodontally involved, immunocompromised, no insurance. And so we helped them as well. And getting involved with the Oral Cancer Foundation, Brian Hill's the founder. He's a 20+ year HPV oral pharyngeal cancer survivor. That's where I really started to find my mentors, my first mentors. And through some of the things that Brian had, he invited me to some weekends that he had, some intensives, and there were experts there, head and neck surgeons, ENTs, and got to ask them questions. But then finding mentors here in Colorado as well, head and neck surgeons, ENTs, oral surgeons. And that's where I gained knowledge and still do. I mean, it's never ending, right? Um, so that's how I found mentors, is by getting involved and seeking out, asking questions. We can't be afraid to ask the questions, um, and admit that, hey, I don't know how to do this. I mean, one time I worked with one of the head and neck surgeons, and we were doing free screenings for the homeless here in Denver pre-COVID, and I wasn't finding the right spot for the thyroid. And he's like, here, let me show you how you can do that. So back to your question, that's how I found my mentors and worked on things and doing the free screenings, and just doing it over and over, and just realizing that there is no perfection, but if we work on it and seek excellence in this procedure, we can do it.
Hmm. That story is so beautiful in so many ways. And I think Karen would agree, but I think we just need to take a moment and say thank you.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Thank you for having a big heart, because it's obvious that you establish a relationship with your patients. And I think that's where it all began, was that beautiful relationship with your patient.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. But we do. You both know that. We do. We develop relationships. And I think that's one of the best things that we get to do in dentistry, is develop those relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and for the 13-year-old fangirl, will you point to Donnie there for us? Because I think, yeah, there he is.
There he is. Yeah, that's one of our pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how cool. What a great story, and what a great guy to support 10 people. And
Right?
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't hear it much about him, but he does a lot to make a difference.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, and I know that relationships are important to you, but so is family. And I think it's really cool that your daughter followed in your footsteps. And she actually has her own kind of oral cancer success story. Can you share a little bit about her and how proud you are of her?
Yeah. Oh, my daughter, my only child, she's amazing. And yep, she became a dental hygienist. And then there was a time when she practiced for a bit, and then there was a time where she focused on her 4 kids, but she's practicing again. And her story is, while she wasn't practicing and she knew what I was doing, she didn't really know what I was doing. And when she got back into hygiene, somebody said, "Oh, your mom's Susan Cotten. Oh, your mom's famous in dental hygiene. Did you know that?" And of course, you know how kids are. She's like, "Yeah, okay, my mom's famous. Yeah, whatever." And they said, so this past summer, when RDH Under One Roof was in Denver, she came to my oral cancer screening workshop, attended that, and after the workshop was over that day, she came up to me and she almost had tears in her eyes, which is, for my daughter, is, she's like, "Oh my gosh, Mom, that was so good. You are such a good speaker. That was so good. I learned so much." And, to have your child say that to you is just, it was wonderful. So she took what she learned and she said, And so she shared this in a post in Colorado Dental Hygiene Association anonymously. And she kind of told that story, attending my course. And she said, so I'll admit I wasn't always doing a comprehensive screening. And I think we all have that story,
Mhm.
you know, pushed for time for a lot of different things.
Mhm.
And she said, but I took that back to my office and started doing a comprehensive screening, extraoral, intraoral. And so a couple weeks after that, she identified an abnormality in the thyroid of a 20-year-old male and referred him, encouraged him, said, you need to have this investigated further. And she showed it to him. She had him feel it. She did all the right stuff. She did the Cotten method. And he was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And yeah, and so she saved a life.
Mhm.
A few months later, the mom came into the practice. Steph saw them. I can say her name. Steph saw the mom, but they didn't know the connection yet. And so the mom asked, who saw my son and discovered this. And when she knew it was Steph, she was just bawling, thank you, thank you. You found this in my son, you saved his life. And just recently, he brought her some flowers and a gift card. Um, so yeah, she saved a life.
Mm.
Yeah. And
What a
yeah,
proud mom moment for you, huh?
right,
Oh,
right. Yeah.
well, and I'm sure you feel like a mom to all of your attendees that come to your workshops or take your online, or that you probably feel a little like a mom to all of them, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we do. Well, you guys, when we work with people like that in the dental profession, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we do. You take ownership of it. And
Yeah.
again, it's that relationship, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'd love to know, you know, what are people's response, patients' response when they get a Cotten method oral cancer screening and they've never had one before?
Yeah. Well, oh my gosh, nobody's ever done this before. Why am I getting this now?
Mm-hmm.
And I what I like to tell attendees of my course is this, because I've been there and had to do it, is if you're not doing a comprehensive screening right now, but you're going to implement it, not but when you do implement it, what do you say to your patients? Because that's how I was. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was thorough. Now I'm not. Now I'm going to be thorough. Sorry, I sucked there for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my dad was a veterinarian and I worked with him a lot. And I took a phrase that he used, and it's what we know now. And so I told my patients, I said, what we know now is that oral cancer has changed. It's not just tobacco and alcohol that are causes, there's new risk factors, and screening has changed. So you're going to notice me doing some things differently today when I do your screening.
Mhm.
And, and that can go with a lot of things in dentistry now,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because so much has changed and we are doing things differently. And we can very easily say that to patients.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful, beautiful phrase, because I bet that fear of of not wanting to, fess up for not doing a good job, it stops some people maybe,
Mhm. Yeah,
right?
yeah. It is. It's a little bit of guilt. It's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, oh, I wasn't doing this, but now I'm going to. What do I say?
Mm-hmm.
But that's really all we need to say is, you'll notice me doing some things differently now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And that instills confidence
Mm-hmm.
in the person who's doing the exam. And I think part of the confidence as well is as a clinician, if you do find something, is knowing what the next step is. And having familiarity with that. Because I remember back when I was practicing, and this must have been in about, I don't know, the year 2000 or something. And we did the one with the dye, where you'd put the dye in the patient's mouth that would stain up suspicious lesions, whatever colors. That used to make my heart beat so quick, because I was then like, oh gosh, what if I find something? What do I do next if I find that? So having that system in place that you're confident makes it less nerve-wracking for the clinician to do, because you know what to do next.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's right, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
And as dentists and hygienists screening for cancer, abnormalities, conditions, we are not diagnosing. We have to remember that. We don't have to know. Do we know it's a fibroma? Yeah, we know it's a fibroma, and we know that that doesn't need to be referred. We know what to do with that. But when we see suspicious things, these persistent signs and symptoms, lesions, and those symptoms, we're not diagnosing. We are identifying persistent signs and symptoms that deserve further investigation by the specialist. With teledentistry, we can take a photo, we can send it to the oral medicine specialist or the oral surgeon, or refer them. I mean, there are going to be lesions that we're going to see and we're thinking to ourselves, this isn't good. But we don't need to say that to the patient. We need to make that referral, ensure that they go and get that appropriate next best step. But let that next specialist that we refer to do their job, do the biopsy, and then we know for sure if it is or if it isn't. And that was really something that was taught to me by some of my mentors, is if everybody does their job, if dentists and hygienists screen well and then refer to the specialist for that next best step, we've done our job. We don't have to take on, and we shouldn't really take on that responsibility of diagnosing unless we know it's like a fibroma or it's something like that that is a benign thing. Then we can confidently say that.
So that distinction,
that's purely my opinion.
Yeah, I think that distinction is really important. That it's a team approach, and you don't have to diagnose, you just identify something that needs further looking at. Now, when you do the trainings for teams for the oral cancer screening, I'm sure you've seen some really great examples of practices that have, really taken this on board and run with it and been successful. What's like a really amazing transformation that you've seen from a team who've been through your program?
Well, it's another step that brings them together, working together as a team. They are on the same page with this. The dentist, the hygienist, the dental assistants, the front office, the communication to patients is smooth. Because we know, a patient will walk up, oh yeah, Susan wants me to go see the oral surgeon for this, or, Karen said, I've got to go do this. I really don't want to. The front office or the dental assistant or whomever can support that because they have that knowledge too. So it's coming together as a team, which you guys know so much about, and working together in the oral cancer and screening and supporting that. But it's also reducing liability for the office as a whole and for the dentist and the hygienist, because we have liability in oral cancer. And when I work with teams or even in my courses and workshops, we go over what are the areas of liability that we have. And one of those areas is not performing a proper head and neck evaluation. And so knowing that we're reducing that risk of liability and serving our patients with excellence. And they get excited. It's like, oh my gosh, we're working together on this. It's exciting. Oh gosh, we can save a life. And they'll send me photos. Look what we found. So yeah, it's team building.
I bet that it almost is a relief just knowing that everybody's on the same page, everyone's backing each other up. Because it's tough when there's maybe one person that's doing it thoroughly and another person that's not, or, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's knowing that everybody's calibrated.
Yeah.
Like for example, dentists. Oh yeah, my hygienist says they're doing an oral cancer screening. Okay, do you know what they're doing?
Right.
Well, no, but they say they're doing, a comprehensive oral cancer screening. Well, it's critical for your practice, for your liability as the dentist to know what the hygienist is doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and isn't there, and this goes into maybe a little more than we want to get into detail, but like as far as coding goes, isn't the oral cancer screening within certain codes, like comprehensive? Yeah. So
yeah,
if you're coding that you did a comprehensive exam, that includes oral cancer screening, right?
Right. Yeah. In the comprehensive exam, the periodic and the perio evaluation. So that coding has changed a little bit. In the descriptors of those three codes, it used to read oral cancer evaluation where indicated. But that's been changed. That's been edited by the ADA Code Maintenance Committee meeting. And now all three of those codes in the descriptor reads oral cancer evaluation, period. So it's not optional. It must be done. And coding experts will say, if ever investigated and it was determined that those codes were submitted, but an oral cancer evaluation wasn't done, then there's potential for a fraudulent act. Okay. If you're listening, don't say, oh my gosh, Susan said we're committing fraud. No. It's for any reason, if ever investigated, charts were looked at, and those codes were submitted, and an oral cancer evaluation wasn't done, potential for a fraudulent act, just like anything that that could occur if something was submitted and not really done. But critical for dentists to know that about that change, and for hygienists who are in the states where they can submit maybe a periodic evaluation or the perio evaluation. Important to keep up on those code changes.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that, Laura.
Yeah. Well, I think it's all heading in a positive direction where we are taking better care of our patients and we are feeling confident, right? I think those two things, better care and confidence in the care we're giving. And so if anyone's listening and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to know more about the Cotten method, what is the best way to start looking into you and finding out about you and how you can help with that?
Oh, thank you. Go to my website. I've got some information there. There is a downloadable Cotten method screening guide that's for purchase there for $20, but I'm going to give you guys the link because I am updating that. I'm going to give you guys the link so your listeners can just have it and download it. But it's those pertinent questions that we should ask. And then I've got photos of the extraoral, intraoral that will guide them through what are the components of that comprehensive evaluation. But yeah, go to my website. You can find me on social media, and also National Network of Healthcare Hygienists. They have a lot of courses on oral systemic, on oncology, a lot of different things. And my entire Cotten Method course is there online. It covers the 4 science-based pillars of the Cotten Method, the etiologies, additional risk factors, signs and symptoms. And I use my instructional screening videos, and we go through and talk about what that comprehensive Cotten Method screening is. So the entire course is there, and you have lifetime access to the screening videos, which is nice through their website.
That is really awesome. We'll make sure and have your website and those links in our show notes below. But you also do team oral cancer trainings, don't you? Like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love to do that, to go in and work with the team and spend a half a day, sometimes a full day, and we go over the signs and symptoms. We talk about and look at those videos, and then we go hands-on and we work on it, get everybody calibrated and get them confident in screening. And I'm not a one and done, go in and work with the team. We have follow-ups because there's always questions when you start to implement something, right? Yeah. Right. So you want to have those follow-ups and get together and ask those questions. So yeah, that's team trainings are fun.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been, for a topic that is big, this has been a fun conversation. And thanks for sharing its beginnings early on with Donnie, and thank you for your big heart. It's obvious that you care not just about your patients, but about this topic and changing lives, saving lives, and teamwork, your family. Just an amazing person. We're so honored that you were with us today.
Oh, it was an honor to be here with the two of you, and so fun. So fun. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you for talking about this topic.
Yeah. Well, let's get you back again, and we'll talk more about it. And but listeners, we hope you found out some encouragement today from Susan and her Cotten Method. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Mint Door Podcast. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, and subscribe for more holistic performance content.